Yeah, but these days, she ended up in the tree and it's isn't it? But she said that 80 years ago, I didn't go through it. And I was like, God, who do you know? No. It's not really shit. So, well, there's not so good. Good idea. Yeah. Because I'm glad for
She didn't enjoy it.
Mary is travelling for work today and is unable to attend.
Pardon? Sorry.
Hold on.
Must be. Getting cranky.
I did say that quite correctly.
For a while.
Getting cranky.
I can see that it's looking like we're going to be all vote any second. Look at that. There's the external people all sitting in a room. Good to go. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to this public workshop to hear about where we're at in the process of the Te Wairere Cromwell second. Whatever it's going to be called, because of course it isn't named yet, building sitting down by the whoever is presenting.
Just quickly, Cromwell Museum here, this is their project, and also online we've got Story who Cromwell Museum have been working with, and the team up there. So between Martin and them, they'll be leading this workshop. So over to you guys.
Well, thank you, David. And thank you for your welcome, Anna. We're pleased to be here. And James McLean is going to do the heavy lifting this afternoon from Story Inc. I'm going to paint a bit of a picture to start with. And give you a little bit of background very quickly. Was the Cromwell Museum Trust has been going since 2014, so that's 10 years. And it was formed with the assistance of Neil Gillespie over there. And
I've done something.
So, which we're very grateful. And we rely on an active set of trust members and a very extensive community of volunteers. The volunteers are drawn from the community. We've always had a strong volunteer representation of up to 30 volunteers left. The initial philosophy was we're going to use grant funding as long as possible, and we had a relatively modest operating grant from the COBC. In 2019, we were able to appoint Jennifer as our director. And in that year, we also presented submissions on the long-term plan. Where one of I think the key question that was asked of the common community was, do you support the museum, or worse to that effect? I remember sitting in the hall and making a submission to Yuri Banner at that time. And what was interesting was that the response was extremely positive. We were quite impressed by that. And then from that point on, the decision was made to proceed with the Memorial Hall as well. And we worked with the council and the community board to promote the need for a new museum in the new Memorial Hall. And the case we made was that the museum was seen as a major draw card to the building. It'll be one of the few places, if not the only place, that is open all day, every day. And it's expected to be a major draw card to the building. And I think looking at, just as an aside, how the track from Bannockburn to Gippsland is progressing now, it's half finished by the end of the year. And giving somewhere 90,000 people who go on their bikes along the track here, you can only expect that's going to double. So the potential to attract tourists and locals is very, very significant. And now here we are. Jazz Match has been appointed. We were involved in the selection of Story Inc. And there's been an initial concept design for the fit out. And earlier this week, we had detailed concept design, and that's what is going to be presented this afternoon. And this is sort of to be used as a basis to proceed. There will be some further modifications and additions. There have been some omissions that we've noticed, but we're very, very encouraged and very pleased and very excited about what we've seen so far, and I hope we will be too. Now, Jennifer started out as our director for the trust, and early this year, she accepted a one-year appointment as transitional curator for the museum, and now is employed by the COGC. And I think this is a very satisfactory and very satisfactory arrangement for all parties. And just wanted to let you know that I think a promise was made that this wasn't going to cost the council anything. The fit out, I'm talking about the fit out. And we think we've reached that target. We've got $1.1 million from Central Lakes Trust. We've got $350,000 from two of the lotteries funds, the Heritage Fund and the Community Fund. And we've just recently received confirmation of $200,000 from the Otago Community Trust. So there's 1.65 million. And it hasn't cost you a penny. And this we see as the role of the Museum Trust going forward, because not having an employee, so to speak, what is our role going to be? First of all, it has to be to support the whole operation of the museum, to provide advice as required to Jennifer and others, and also to seek funding, particularly for special projects. Now, what you're seeing this afternoon is only part of the museum, which is the portion that is the other part of the museum is a temporary exhibition space, and so that space there that we can arrange visiting exhibitions, temporary exhibitions, whatever. And that's an area where the trust expects to be able to make a contribution towards funding, getting some of these things here, or getting funding for insurance or transport or whatever. So there is a role to be completed, which I would hope we can do in conjunction with the council as to how the trust and the council can work together collaboratively in the future. Now, there are a few people to acknowledge in this. I do want to acknowledge the support of the Cromwell Community Board, and especially its chair, Anna, who's been a regular attendant of our meetings and has provided much helpful advice. And also on the Community Board, Sarah Brown has been a member of the Working Party, and that's very much appreciated. She keeps the communication line going, I presume.
Yeah, so that's the reverse.
Your praise. You just praise them up.
Yeah, well,
Build each other up.
I don't know if I can mention you all by name, but right, so I know that. There's also been fantastic support from David and Genevieve, and also from Gareth. We've worked quite closely with these three people over the last few months, and particularly since the time that Jennifer was appointed in July to the council. And a big shout out to Jennifer as well, because she's provided a lot of the intellectual input to what you're going to see this afternoon. Also, our museum volunteers, they've been involved with Jennifer in describing those aspects of the collection that are going to feature in the new museum. And we really couldn't have done it without the input of a relatively small number of our total set of volunteers. So they'll be acknowledged perhaps as function within the museum at some stage, but I just want to mention them now. And I think there is an issue as to how volunteers will work in the new facility as well. So that's still to be worked through. I mentioned that the Museum Trust will be continuing. We've got a role that's still to be worked out, and that really will, I think, set our next few years. But we're waiting till we get through this transition phase first, and then I think what will happen is that David and I have a chat about what we might want to talk about, and no doubt that will come back to the community board as well. So everyone really has done their bit, I guess, is the thing I can say. It's been quite astonishing, the support that we've received from everybody.
And we are confident that it's going to be a magnificent facility for Cromwell. So, do you want to add to that general hymn of praise?
Oh, look, it's just been really wonderful working with the Story Inc. team. They've been really encouraging and have produced a beautifully detailed design for us. And I'm sure you'll all be really thrilled with it. And I just also want to add that I see the museum as being like a living museum. So the displays will be refreshed and renewed regularly in order to keep it updated and dynamic and relevant as well for our population and for future generations coming up. And so we have ample ability within these spaces to renew our displays quite regularly. So that's a really exciting part of the project as well.
Are there any questions for us, or just move to the presentation from James?
Thank you really for the presentation.
I'll just make one acknowledgement. You can't mention me without mentioning Edith Mackay. Edith Mackay.
Oh, indeed. Yes. Well, actually, I should have been. I think I've been very remiss. I haven't introduced Joan Lawrence, who's one of our trustees, and I should have mentioned Peter Mead, who has been a trustee for a long time with Christchurch. So, Peter was part of the board effort. So thanks, Dean, for that. Okay, James, it's all yours.
All right. So, do you want us to share screen and click through it from this end?
No, I can do it from here. That's okay.
You can get from here. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Kia ora, everybody. I'm James McLean from Story Inc. And with me here, I've got Sinead, who's our 3D designer, Kate, who's our writer and researcher, and Michaela, who's been developing the interactive content for this exhibition. So yeah, as Martin said, we're at this concept design stage, and we think it's a very exciting project, and we're really looking forward to kind of making it happen over the next about 9 months or so, yeah, to putting it into reality. So be really looking forward to hearing your comments and suggestions and so on after this. Yeah, next slide then, I guess. We'll just keep on.
Pause for 1 second. We're just looking for the remote to turn up the television.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You increase volume, you want to right in, James?
Sorry?
Yeah, that's it.
Good to continue, James. It's good to turn the volume up a bit.
Okay. Yeah, so can we sort of step through the slide? How long have we've got about 20 minutes or so? Should we try and put it into the next 20 minutes? Is that about right?
Yep, sounds good.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah, so okay, this slide is unfortunately defaulted a little bit as it's been sent through, but one thing that we put this little swirly poem at the beginning of the thing, carved out with a core in an ancestor's hands, water flowed life into the land. Many passed through, some stayed, the town submerged as the waters raised. People like water find their way. So it's just really a kind of reminder to us that of some of the big themes of this exhibition as they've sort of developed for us, which are about especially the theme of water, and water as a real thing, but also as kind of a metaphor for different flows of people and different cultures and so on that meet and merge and in the area. And I guess one of the big inspirations for us was the site. Yeah, so if you just go to the next slide there, yeah, thank you. Right on the lake there, and the site of Cromwell on the junction of these two great South Island rivers, the Kawerau and the Clutha, and the merging of the waters there is something that we've really picked up on and used as a metaphor. So this is just a picture, an oldish picture of the building itself. And just to remind everybody, that bit over there on the right is where the museum will be. That little box, not particularly big, but very important, we think, in the whole scheme of things for the centre. And the next one, so this is a little plan of the space. And one of the important things for us is that this little museum, this little blue box there on the right, isn't kind of like a totally self-contained, isolated thing. It's very much linked into lots of other things. And so those squiggly lines that you see there are lines which are sort of, the yellow line represents a sort of graphic look which goes through from the outside all the way through into the museum and is expressed all the way through. So it'll feel consistent and part of that graphic look. And then the blue wiggly line is about this theme of water, really, and it's expressed through this ancestral character of Rakai Hotu, who carved out the lakes, and then the lakes turned into rivers, and the rivers meet here, and that water story begins there. So that story is expressed architecturally at the very front of the building with this steel beam in the shape of a core, which is a digging stick, and it will also be picked up in the museum as a sort of like a starter for that water theme. And then there are all these links, also links to the outside space, to the heritage precinct, to the planting that's going on down on the lake, and then links to things that you can't see, like Old Cromwell or Chinatown, and also links to other communities within the region or the area, like Bannockburn and Lowburn and Bendigo and so on. So it's not a sort of thing that is a sort of isolated little place. It's trying to be outward looking, I guess, is what we're trying to express here. Next one. So what else am I to have you got the next? Yeah.
It's just loading, apparently.
Okay. Is it quite big, this folder, this one?
I think you haven't got this one.
Right, okay.
Having a moment, that's funny.
Like we can share and at this end, would that be easier?
It's worked a little harder for live teams. You need to share. We're back on, I think.
Okay, good. So just a closer look at the plan of the building. So you'll enter with that at that top yellow arrow there, and then to get to the museum, you go down that central spine and turn left, and we're down the end there. There's the blue line there marked showcase will be a sort of like a teaser showcase outside the main body of the museum, which will have some collection objects in it, which give you a sort of like invite you to visit the museum itself. And then you keep on going, and then there's this little shop there on the right, and straight ahead of you will see the sign which says Cromwell Museum, or whatever the title of the museum is, to be confirmed. And the exhibition space we're going to talk about today is the coloured one there, and you'll circulate it in that clockwise direction and exit to retail, which is your classic line of every visitor attraction in the world. And then the space that Martin mentioned, the temporary gallery, is the white space above that space. So that will be, there's a doorway connecting the two spaces, a big open doorway. And so what we're talking about today is just the long-term exhibition, but there'll be a temporary exhibition space, which will always have interesting things in it too. So yeah, next one. We did a lot of work last year actually about with the Museum Trust about what are the guiding principles for this exhibit, and the central one is about this idea of connections and Cromwell as a junction, as a place where the waters meet, and making connections between people and so on. So, and then there are some other like key things that we want to do. We want to highlight the mana whenua, the Māori dimension of stories, which is sometimes quite invisible in many places. And then we want to celebrate the diversity of Cromwell as a diverse community. We want really to create an authentic local experience that people can identify with. We want to be adaptable so that it's not like something which is set in concrete and can't be changed. And yeah, finally, we just want to create a spot that people say, oh, you must go down there. You know, this is a must-see spot. It's a spot that people feel, that locals feel confident and proud to bring their friends to when they come into town, into Cromwell. So those are some of our key guiding principles. And in the next slide, we just talk about some of the visitor groups. Okay, if you go back one, so the biggest visitor group are locals, as in Cromwell locals and Central Otago locals. Another group, important one, is South Islanders. So there's quite a large population within a few hours' drive with Christchurch and Dunedin, and then there are obviously international tourists. And then there'll be a group of people who come for education and research, including school groups. And finally, making it a place which is attractive for Maori visitors as well, and they see their own stories here is important to us too. So next slide. So looking at that coloured area, we have sort of divided it into a few very big zones. So one of the things that the challenges for this story is there's an awful lot of sub-stories, there's an awful lot of detailed stories, and we really want those stories not to feel like they're totally separate stories. Here's gold, here's the Chinese story, here's the the dam story and so on, but to make them sort of flow into each other. And one way, we've got a number of sort of strategies for doing that, but one way is to divide up into these zones and ask these really big kind of buffy sort of thought-provoking questions like, where are we? Who are we? What is it to live here? And what is, what's it like in the future? What will this sort of living land be like that we have this amazing environment around Cromwell? So those are some sort of very high-level zones. And then we'll go into the next slide and show how those sort of play out in a lot more detail. So the entrance space is about Te Wairere, the junction, and it's a space which will, sorry, if you stay back on that previous one, that'll be good. It's about, like, we'll use some lighting effects and audio to show this idea of the meeting of the two rivers. So this is as it was back in the day when the two rivers met right there at the edge of Cromwell, and the waters sort of merged, and it's that kind of theme that we're starting with. Then the various zones, we touch on this idea of Rakaihotu, the sort of person who carved out, or the legendary ancestor who carved out the lakes and let the rivers flow. Mahinga Kai is the story of the Maori journeys through the landscape for looking for food and resources, and then the arrival of European surveyors and farmers. And then zooming back over to the left to some of these stories about natural history, about geology, about the origin of the landscape in the sort of great continent of Zealandia, and about natural history. So what was in this landscape, the plants and animals, and in particular moa, because that's a huge story for Cromwell, in what was the environment like here originally. And then sort of moving clockwise around the space, we'll talk about the gold story, the gold rush story, about Chinese settlement in the orange zone there, about the emergence of this colonial or pioneer era, 19th century, early 20th century colonial era town. And then the number 9, we've created a little room there. There's actually a window at the bottom on the right of this plan. That's a window which looks out over Lake Dunstan, and partly for reasons of not letting the light come in too much from that space, we've sort of locked it off into a little room where you can look out onto the onto the lake and get some of that information about that story, the flooding of the town, the building of the dam, hydroelectricity, and so on. And then on the other side of that wall there, that little wall sticking up vertically, we would repurpose the existing town model, but use projection to show how the flooding changed the town forever. So you'll see the old version of Cromwell, and you press a button and as the waters rise, and you see what, how deeply flooded it in fact was. And then zones 10 and 11, as we're circulating out of the space, zone 10 is about this sort of revival of the fortunes of the town with agriculture, viticulture, and horticulture. And finally, zone 11 is about the land and the future and conservation stories, how we protect the land in the future. So those are the sort of content zones, but as I say, we really do want to sort of flow the stories between them, so they're not seen as completely separated little mini stories, but form a continuum. Okay, so the next one, these are just some pictures of what the space might look like. So it's not a huge space, but this is the view from the doorway in, and you'll be looking around the outside the space. The carpet will express a kind of river-like theme, and the over on the right we'll have a projection interactive, which is moa footprints and other footprints of birds which have no longer here. And the sort of chronology of the story goes along the wall and round the outside of the space. And you can see on the left there's a sort of like a flowy kind of river-like motif there, and that poem, that little piece of I don't know, just poem, but whatever it is that I read at the beginning, that would appear on the walls and sort of pick up that sort of continuity of the story through the space. And then these up high, we've got these high level categories of who are we, where are we, and picking up those sort of big zones of the story. So we can just sort of step through these spaces. So in this area, we're talking about Mahinga Kai, and this is a Mokihi themed seat and showcases. These objects in the middle are all about gold and gold rushes. Okay, and this is looking back at the entrance to the space, and I mentioned the lighting and the audio effects in the entrance there of the blending of the waters. And yeah, the object you see in the center there is a reproduction of a ko, a digging stick, which picks up that story of Rakaihotu, the ancestor. And you can just keep scrolling through them, please. Yeah, so looking back, we will have a section, there's quite a rich collection about the moa bones and artifacts used for butchering moa. And also, as I mentioned, we'll have a top projected moa footprint interactive at where the little kid is playing. And then over on the far wall, something which shows you the scale of the moa. So, not all of them were the huge things that we know, but the ones that were huge were enormously huge in this area. So there's a great story there, and yeah, we'll tell that with these objects and these various interactives. You can keep on scrolling through, maybe. So yes, a wider shot there of the same space. Okay, this area is looking an area which is about gold, and then about the Chinese settlement in beyond. So there's various very cool gold related objects, including model dredges and pumps and so on. And we also add in interactive elements. So that brown box you see in the foreground is a reproduction interactive cradle, gold cradle. So you'd be able to wobble the cradle as if you're panning for gold, and when you've done it enough, little specks of gold will appear in the bottom through a lighting effect. Yeah, and maybe just keep moving. Yeah, so this is looking through to past the gold area to an area which is a zone which is about the Chinese story. And the key artifact here is this quite amazing Otago schist headstone, which is a sort of very prized part of the collection that a miner probably carved for himself, and whether he was buried under it, I don't know if anyone knows, or whether his body was sent back to China with many of the others. Probably it was. So that object will be in the line of sight from the entrance. So it's one of the sort of powerful, more powerful objects of the whole thing. Yeah, keep going and we'll so turning the corner there, you're looking into the little room where you can look out onto Lake Dunstan and learn about the hydro story, and the rest of this space is about Cromwell as a sort of pioneering town, and we would have a display there using some of the artwork and the portraits from the existing collection, and then being able to scroll through a whole lot of different portraits from the collection on a screen below. One of the things that oh yeah, okay, so that's the view looking out the window. It's not the actual view, it's a bit better than that, but you the window's a little bit high, so you do actually have to stand up to look out into the lake. But the yellow thing on the wall there is a little audio cup, so you would be able to choose and play audio oral history stories of the forming of the dam and people who remember that. And this area, we actually, with input from just a few days ago from Martin and Joan and Jennifer, we're actually going to make this more related to the pioneer Cromwell story. So at the moment, the image there that you see is of the story of the dam. We might make that more of a spillover from the previous zone, which it was pointed out to us was quite small to accommodate the large number of stories that have to go into it. But yeah, this would be a video or touchscreen kind of area that, again, you can use a sound cup to listen to the stories without bothering other people. Yeah, next one. And then at this point, you emerge from that space and you're sort of on the home straight, more or less. This thing over here on the right with the coloured tiles in front of it is a sort of a magnetic jigsaw puzzle made of Ortex. And Ortex is a sort of soft kind of fabric based tile. I mean, it's rigid, and we can put magnetic backs onto it, and so that people can create the jigsaw puzzles of Cromwell, maybe potentially, past or deep past and colonial past and present, maybe even future. I don't know. There'll be different sets of puzzles. And then over on the other side of that little wall, there would be displays about agriculture, horticulture and viticulture. And you can see there is a sheep in the current museum whose name is Gordon Ramsay, and we're trying to honour Gordon Ramsay by including at least a half sheep in the new space. And then over on the right, you can see various wine barrels which will hold that viticulture and horticulture display. And so, yeah, therefore there you can see them. And those wine barrels, you'll be able to open them up, and inside the video will play, or there might be little dioramas. For example, we thought maybe a diorama about the famous Cromwell Big Fruit, and maybe the opening of that attraction back in 1990. Yeah. At the end of the line there is that's the town model with just the lighting effect showing, the raising of the dam. And on the right-hand side, this is a sort of quite an important feature of the exhibition, because the space is quite small and we don't want to overburden people with like 500-word stories on the walls, because people are quite averse to that nowadays. But then there's an awful lot of content to be conveyed. So this thing with it, which has got a Chafez beetle on it, is a touch screen, and there would be 3 of those throughout the space, and each of these touch screens would have slightly longer form stories, so they'd be able to have 3 or 4 stories on each touchscreen, and each one would have multiple images and so on. So this is a reverse view looking out. So the door through there takes you out into the retail area, and then as we mentioned before, the main story here is about conservation. It looks a little bit like less dimensional in some of the other spaces, and part of that is because this will be a changing story. So these panels, the blue panels there that you see, are all text panels with graphics on them, but they can be replaced relatively easily. And we'd also include, like, there's a little showcase, the little showcase on the right-hand wall for the Beatles, a little scent interactive, which might include the scent of Manuka. That's the little green stalky thing that you see there. And then over on the left, there's another big window here, and you're looking out over the lake, and this drum-like thing there is like a direction finder, which shows you which direction various things are. So like the Invercargill or Bluff sign, but it's pointing out just to the lake, to the old town, to Clyde, to Bannockburn, to Bendigo behind you, and so on. And so that's my very quick skip through. And I'll just very briefly, because I think I'm out of time, I won't go into these, but like obviously there's a huge amount more detail for each of these stories, and it's sort of layered up in the different zones. Yeah, I won't really pick apart this slide, but as well as these separate zones, we want to unify it with the theme of water, with the theme of people. We also, in the next slide, we have a sort of a layer which is about the sort of mana whenua, the Maori dimension. So the purple areas over on the left at the top are the areas which are more strongly about that dimension. But one of the things that we think is important is that we don't sort of like consign that story entirely to the past, that it exists in the present and the future as well. And so, you know, we're concerned to keep those stories alive through the space in different ways. And then finally, in the next slide, we also think it's important that these stories aren't completely abstract, you know, that you're not talking about things in the abstract all the time. And human faces are really important, you know, as a learning thing, as a way of people to identify with stories. And so we're looking wherever possible to have people and people's faces appearing to represent or to introduce different stories. And these are just some of the people that we could introduce, like Chinyi Mui, the person whose gravestone it is, Edward Peters, Black Peter, the early prospector, people whose stories may not be as well known as some of the other ones, like Hartley and Riley and so on. Yeah, and that's, I think, pretty much where we are up to. Oh, well, so this is our schedule. The green, sort of 6 green bars there on the left is this concept design phase. And so we're just coming to the end of that. And we're really, we're presenting it to the museum and to you, and looking for feedback, and those are the 2 little lines there. We're obviously on underneath that to the right, we're at yellow, the yellow vertical line, and then as soon as we've received that feedback, we'll go into this intensive period of detailed design, like making detailed designs of the showcases and also developing the content, the multimedia content, and so on, all in collaboration with the museum and the various external partners or that they bring on, including the Chinese community, Okaha as sort of Maori cultural advisors, and so on. And so we're hoping to get well, we will get that detailed design and content development phase by the end of the year, and then next year we'll be into production and fabrication and in term for opening in the middle of next year. So that's our story in a nutshell. That's what we've been working on.
And what James hasn't mentioned is that there are a number of other sets of graphics, which one of them, for example, contains the specifications for everything that's to be written. So the format is already set out. Another one contains all the dimensions
of the cabinetry and the placing within the museum of the various items. So there's been an enormous amount of work done on the detail that you just can't see, but we have here.
Great.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Martin. Good point.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I think that being able to see how you're taking a rectangular space and taking people on a journey from prehistory, from pre-European history through to modern day and futures is a really lovely thing. And I think that when our community is looking at what does our museum bring us, that those histories that you've mentioned are really important. So those histories of gold mining, the histories of the Chinese population, the histories of the early European settlers, the history of the dam, and those stories of Moa and people who moved through these spaces before European settlement. So I really like the idea that you're following that river round in order to see and hear all of those stories. Anyway, I've got any comment or some direction, or you've asked for maybe some feedback and some direction. I've just done the warm fuzzies, but so I'll open the floor to people around the table if they've got some other things they wish to add.
I'd just like to say that I think what I'd also like to see actually is a little bit of the sort of pre-human influence on the area. For example, I was trying very hard to explain to somebody the other day how the sugar loaf was formed. So it's something really about how the whole landscape was formed.
It's going to be in it. We have a geology, yes.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
definitely going to be in it.
Right. Okay.
That's great.
Did you ask that?
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyone else? Neil?
I've got more than one. What was the sheep story? Sorry, I was zoned out somewhere else.
He's already at the museum.
Ah, that one. All right.
We've got a sheep.
But they're going to chop him in half.
Because has he got a black face?
No,
It's a merino, and tell me it's a merino. Because the thing there was a black face sheep, and I'm going, no, a merino.
That's obviously what in the program that they've used to put this.
That's right. Yes.
Have a black face.
And I make the observation: be really careful with the horticulture, viticulture, agriculture. We don't see too much slant with one way. So love the idea of the barrel bolts, but it says smacks are just viticulture. And I think we're going to look at how we got to where we got to, and it goes pastoral, then it goes hort, and then it goes vit. And it needs to show that in some way, shape, or form. Was my only thought about that.
I think
Yeah.
we can touch on that a little bit more in the hydro story, the transformation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and while you're on that, then Kevin Jackson, in my view, is the wrong person for that story. I'd be talking to Peter Mead. He was the person who was most involved in terms of the administration of the change that took place. Had the big picture view. Kevin came out of an orchard that was further down the gorge, actually probably in Vincent County. And I think Peter will provide the more objective type view. And then I'd hope that someone, whatever you end up putting in there, does get some fact checked by, dare I say, the industry. Some people down at Clyde don't know how it worked.
But we do have oral histories of a lot of these people too.
Yeah.
So it depends on who we interviewed as for the oral history. So that's something that can be thought of later, but we do have that.
Yeah. Yeah, you got that. Kai Tahu, Nai Tahu. You're using Kai, so you're replacing the NG with the KA all the way through. Cool.
I think we probably are. I think it's gone that way. We're never sure, but we'll take direction. But I think we are doing Kai.
I'm sure we'll be just.
The direction from the kaha that Kaitaku is.
Yeah. I think that's important, and the only reason, because you talked about Mahinga Kai, and I'm going, and then but the story showed Mahika Kai, so just whatever we do, just be consistent. That's the, and it's not easy.
That means they're looking for food, so it's not quite tahu.
No, but Mahinga Kai and Mahika Kai is replacing the entry with the KA.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be confusing.
Yeah, case I think.
You've checked that it's spelled correctly because even things that might be NG elsewhere in the country, maybe okay here. So
Yeah.
that's that checking through or Kahata,
Yeah,
that those are correct. Yeah.
And the gold story, Hartley and Raleigh comes to mind.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure that's not lost,
No,
but so that's a pretty big part of it, I think.
and Gabriel Reed.
Yes, yeah, just that whole history to it. And I had one more. What was it? Oh, yeah, I've put down here. Seems to be a lot of the existing not on show. Now I know that was just but I know what's in there currently. And go, it's a lot. Kind of what are we going to do with it all? I don't know. Maybe it's not a story for here, but it's somehow probably important. Whether we have to look at saying we can't store it all away, never to be seen again. We can't put it all in.
We'll be able to change our exhibitions as well and keep refreshing displays by using the collection in that way. And also in showcase leading into the museum, that's quite a large cabinet.
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of collection items in there that can be changed around.
And I suppose we could do it like we're doing with Eden Hall. Some of the stuff we've got that rather than keep it in storage can go into places in Old Cromwell. And dare I say, when this town centre starts humming more than what it is already, there might be places better put stuff on display that can.
There's also the rest of the hall as well. So
Yeah.
there's the areas within that
Yes.
building that we can have cabinets.
Cool. And then my last one is more for us about process going forward. Is the community board / council going to sign off on a final, here
On
goes.
the final design.
Well, designs, I didn't want to use that, but whatever, just about the detail to sort of say, hey, we know what's gone on here. And I'm always mindful that someone will pick up what you've done, the end result, and go, well, surely they should have put that in there. At least if someone owns it, and it's got to be, I think, the governance part of this organisation that owns what's gone and says, we've agreed that's the right thing to do.
Well, maybe like a proven principle or something.
Or something to make sure it's quite clear, because all due respect to all the people involved, there's always going to be that last piece of information that someone's going to pick up.
Yeah.
And really, I think the owner ultimately, in my view, should be the board. Say, well, we signed it off, and therefore it's on us. That's us today. And after 11th October, it's someone different. So can we do it by then, please?
In terms of the overall scope of the building, that this is still part of that building,
Yeah.
and there's make sure that comes before the board. Not just in a workshop, but in a decision.
Yeah. So please don't take what I said as any criticism, because I think it's looking fantastic. And I can't wait. Would you hurry up? 11 o'clock. October, all done, all right?
Yeah. Okay, I'll just get these guys. I'll get
Yeah. Quickly.
Nigel?
Thank you. It might be outside the scope of this workshop, but how do you see the role of the cinema within the complex and integrating with the museum, both attracting visitors and as part of the museum?
I think it will play a really important part to have that facility right next to the museum. We'll be able to have fantastic historical films, documentaries. It really kind of depends who the owner is as well, but I'm sure that we'd be really happy to collaborate with whoever is going to take over that.
And as well as you mentioned around the trust, looking at finding funding for other things as well. It would be about commissioning your own movie or something, so.
But these things aren't cheap to produce, Nigel, that's the only thing. If you're going to do sort of a 10-minute, high quality clip, then you've really got to invest in serious money in it. So look, there's no doubt existing material that's around that can be used under license or whatever.
I suppose it's part of this, the size of this building and the museum in it has been predicated on strong attraction for visitors. And there's clearly a commercial element to that, both for maybe interest in the museum, but also using that cinema as a revenue point, and whether that's being discussed, talked about.
In line with sort of expressions of interest that we have out there with performers and things, so working with everybody. So hopefully it'll all integrate nicely together.
And it's the cinema, and looking for expressions of interest is both seeing the cinema and the cafe as two halves of the whole.
And the big catering kitchen as well. All of it would come with their options. Yeah. Looking at all options. All options. Yeah. This board challenged us to go as broad as we could. So.
Anything further, team? No. I think that was a very comprehensive look at where you're at, and I think that in terms of the storytelling, I love the little poem with the waters on the wall, I think, and the water flowing around. I think that's, you know, some really nice touches in there, and it looks so light and bright compared to the current space that you're in. So yeah, just like me, let's get on with it and get it done. Team, great work.
Work on the funding.
Good work.
Everyone has done that because, yeah. Can you go and get some more? We've still got some other.
Should we maybe got to do that one as well?
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you
Right,
so
thank
much.
you, everybody. Nice to see you. Appreciate your time. Yeah. See you.
Bye.